Hey bosses, today I'm going to talk about a topic that I think is really important if you are managing employees. And if you're watching this channel, then I know that you are managing employees. So the topic today is questions to ask before firing an employee. And I want to really take this seriously because this is really important information. And obviously there are times when it's a no-brainer, when you know the employee needs to be fired. And that centers on issues of embezzlement or harassment. So those are no-brainers. However, there are employees that are trying hard and they are still not meeting your expectations. So what do you do about them? Do you let them go, or do you really, try and figure out, have you done everything for that employee before you fire them? And so this is what I want to talk to you about today. And I work with a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, and managers and executives. But this is, I think, really important information for everybody, but it's more of maybe the entrepreneurs and some managers that may not have this information. So I thought I would put this together. And this is actually from the employment law firm of Lear, Middlebrook, Vreeland, and Thompson. And so these are some ideas for you to help you think about, have you done everything for that employee prior to firing him or her? Hey, it's Dr. Heather Williamson with the Transformation Group, and welcome back to the channel. All right, so think about what it is, that you really need to do to avoid employment disputes, and ask yourself these questions. And I think I've got about 8 questions, and I am going to refer to my notes just because I really don't want to screw anything up. And there are actual federal laws and state laws regarding this information as well. So check this out if this is an issue for you. All right. So the first question that I really want you to ask yourself is, did your employee know that his or her job was at risk? So you cannot say, well, he should have known better. You cannot assume that that employee knows that his or her job was at risk. So it comes down to you making sure that whether the issues are centering around attitude or attendance or work performance or behavior, you must tell and share this information with your employee prior to termination. So you cannot just fire and assume that they know. The second question that I want you to think about and ask yourself is, how have you treated other employees who have engaged in similar behavior? So have you played favorites and let some get away with not adhering to the policies and procedures? Or have you held others, accountable for the same policies and procedures and not others? So basically, have you played favorites? So what I want you to think about is, if you haven't played favorites, have you based your decisions based on business-related issues such as work history, years of experience, or even issues such as, I'm referring to my notes, even issues such as job responsibilities? So if you're basing the firing on those business decisions and not playing favorites, then that is some good information for you to have in that firing process. The third question that I want you to think about is, what policies or rules was violated, and did your employee know about those policy and rules? So ask yourself this: do you have your policies and rules posted somewhere? Is it on your internal website, or is it in a manual? So is the information communicated to that employee? And when it comes to that, I want you to think about also, do you hold your employees accountable if that policy or rule is in effect, and you document if it is not implemented? Because if you don't document, then you're not having any grounds for firing. The fourth question that I want you to ask yourself before firing an employee is the employee currently under treatment for medical issues? So when you're thinking about that, this includes occupational and non-occupational injuries or illnesses. So keep in mind that the employee doesn't get a pass on being held accountable, get a pass on being held accountable, but there are laws governing employee medical issues that you need to be aware of. And when it comes to those laws and issues that are happening, you must show clearly that firing decision would have happened anyway, regardless of their medical issues. So you can't blame the medical issues. They had to have had a bad attitude, poor performance, bad behavior. Those things have to come into play and not the medical issues when firing. The sixth question that I want you to ask yourself is, was there a proper investigation before this decision to fire? So don't feel like you have to fire that employee on the spot. You can actually have another option, and that is to send that employee home pending further investigation of what he or she did. So you do not have to take action right away. The other thing that I want you to think about is when it comes to this whole investigation is, did you actually allow that employee to share their side of the story? So it can't be one-sided. Also, if you do end up firing that employee, are you comfortable with the investigation that happened and your final decision to take action? The seventh question I want you to ask yourself is regarding before firing an employee is termination the result of poor work performance, or is it workforce reduction? So workforce reduction obviously is simply when layoffs happen because of business environment issues, or that cause that company to have to downsize. So currently right now, the industries such as hospitality, tourism, consulting, industries such as that, due to COVID, have had to downsize their workforce due to business environment issues and government regulations that have happened. So keep in mind that if it is termination for work performance, you've got to document whether it is work performance due to poor attitude, bad attendance records, bad behavior, or even work performance. So keep that in mind, and that has to be documented. The eighth question that I want you to ask yourself before you fire an employee is, does the documentation support the reasons for firing? So think about your performance appraisals that you do with your employee. So if you have given your performance appraisals, that employee raving reviews in the past, and then all of a sudden you decide to fire that employee, your documentation does not support firing that employee if that is your grounds. If you've been giving them excellence and exceeds expectations in the past. So keep that in mind. And also, when it comes to performance appraisals and your documentation, document facts only, not opinions. The facts are what's going to be important when it comes to any regulatory agency that this gets sent up the line for, that goes in front of a judge or jury. They're going to want to know facts, not your opinion. All right? So my last piece of advice is, if this is an issue for you, then consult an employment law attorney to actually answer your specific questions regarding the issues that you might be experiencing with that employee. So hopefully you found some value in this. And I do want to recap real quickly the questions that you need to ask yourself before firing an employee. And the first question is, did your employee know that the job was at risk? The second question is, how have you treated others who engaged in the same behavior? The third question is, what policy or rule was violated, and did your employee know about that policy or rule? The fourth question is the employee currently under treatment for a medical issue? Did your employee, I don't think I touched on this one. Question 5 is, did your employee recently engage in protected activity? So let's say they came to you regarding a disagreement with their pay. Another could be they wanted to talk to you about discrimination or harassment. And I'll get some specific notes on this. The other is if they're bringing up ethical issues about their employer's actions, or if they're simply requesting medical leave. So if you must show that your employee would have been fired regardless of their protected activity. So you can't say because they wanted more pay or they are bringing up ethical issues about me, I'm going to get rid of them before it comes to light. Not cool. All right, so recapping, let me touch on this last one that I just talked about, and that is, did your employee recently engage in protective activity? And then the sixth question is, was there a proper investigation before the decision to fire? The seventh question is termination the result of poor performance or work reduction? And then the eighth question is, does the documentation support your reasons for firing the employee? All right, for termination. So hopefully you found some value in this. If you did, please like the button below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you can get more great information to help you as a boss. And last but not least, share this information with other bosses that may see some value in it. And now go out and be that boss that your employees want to work for. Until next time, bye guys.